You ready to start?
Hi, everyone.
This meeting is being recorded.
Thank you for braving the weather to be here this evening. My name is Claire Becker. I am the Director of Planning and Community Development here at the town of Arlington. This is the second big public event we have had in our AmpUp project, which is the project to update the 2015 master plan to the 2025 comprehensive plan. We are, this evening is going to include a presentation and some interaction with the boards that you've seen around the room. I'm very excited to turn it over to Stanbeck for the presentation and introduce Phil Shaping, who is a member of our consultant team. And right, take it away, Phil.
Thank you very much, Claire, and good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for coming out tonight. It's great to see you. I know the weather is not super cooperative, doesn't really make you want to leave the house. So thank you for making the effort to be here. I really appreciate it. I do want to mention that we are recording this presentation and sharing it via Zoom as well. We have looks like 15 or so people joining us on Zoom that way. And all of the materials tonight, this presentation, these posters will be up on the project website later this evening, as well as a survey. So all of your neighbors, friends, folks, who weren't able to attend tonight can still take a look at all of this stuff and provide us their feedback, which would be great. So what we want to do tonight is kind of provide an update of where we are in our planning process. As Claire said, this is our second big public event in this update process for the comprehensive plan. So we'll kind of provide a recap of what we've been doing since we last met this spring, then talk about what we've been hearing from people both in person and online, and how that then has led to the revised vision and goals that you see on a poster at the very back of the room, which are kind of guiding statements for this planning document. And then at the end, we'll explain what we're going to do during the open house period. That'll be a chance to take a look at what we're calling kind of emerging strategy themes. So these are not the specific detailed strategies that will be in the plan, but they are kind of a little bit broader direction of where we think the strategies are headed, because we want to hear from you and others in the community to make sure we're heading in the right direction before we get to that level of sort of detail. As Claire mentioned, we are working with the AmpUp Advisory Committee. I know there are several committee members here tonight, so if you could just quickly raise your hand so people can see you. We have been meeting regularly with these folks. Thank you very much for your time as part of this process. So if you have questions about the process, you're welcome to talk to them as well. So we are in the middle of about an 18-month process working towards Springtown meeting to have a draft of this plan ready. And what we've been working through since the beginning is sort of an inventory and analysis phase, community visioning, which is what was happening in the spring and summer, and we're now in the middle of the plan development phase. And so again, just to reiterate, the input that we get tonight and over the next couple of weeks online will be really important to help guide the strategies that are part of that plan. But this is also not your last chance either to kind of weigh in. We will have another meeting similar to this for the draft plan. That will be an opportunity to see some of those more detailed strategies and provide feedback at that meeting too. So in terms of what we've heard so far and what we've been doing so far, we kicked off this process with a visioning forum here that had over 100 people turn out to hear the beginning of this process. And then over the last several months, the committee has been hard at work. They've been doing a fantastic job of getting out to different events here in Arlington, whether it's the farmers market, National Night Out in August, different summer concerts and beer gardens. You may have talked with one of them at one of those events, filled out one of the surveys. So they've been a great part of our outreach effort. We also had a table at Town Day last month to be able to talk to people and ask just a couple questions about what we had been hearing so far to try to get more information. And then since the beginning, our project website has had a survey in the spring. More recently, a couple of just 1 or 2 question polls with some more specific questions. There's been an interactive map that's gotten a lot of great engagement and comments on that. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. And so that's been a great resource as well for people to participate on their own time whenever they're able to. So far, the participation and the engagement and the contributions has been fantastic. Great to see this kind of interest in the town's comprehensive plan. We've had over 4,000 unique visitors to the website, and almost 1,000 of them have contributed in some way, filling out a survey, leaving a comment on the map. And having worked in a lot of different communities across New England, we can say these are great numbers. We always want to get them as high as we can. We'd love to double this over the next few months, but where we're at, this is really fantastic. I mentioned the interactive map there. It has a little over 600 comments. What's very interesting there is that people are reading what other people have left. There's an average of over 7 up or down votes on the comments on the map. So it's not a passive thing. People are just leaving comments and then going somewhere else. They're really engaging, and so that's great to see. We've also had over 500 responses to the vision survey, almost the same number for the 2 quick polls, 100 surveys that have been collected with the committee's pop-up events. So really impressive numbers so far. What we've heard from some of that during the visioning phase at the first meeting, we had just an exercise really for people to think about Arlington in 10 years and what kind of headline would you like to see. And so people gave us a lot of great feedback, almost 500 individual headlines. And some of the themes that came out from that were Arlington as a very sustainable community that's addressing climate resiliency, a lot around housing. That has certainly been a popular topic. Multimodal transportation, both bicycling, walking, and transit as well was another important theme. And you see some of the others here too. So these, short, sweet little headlines are kind of interesting to see how people want to see Arlington 10 years from now. From the visioning survey, we wanted to get a sense of which of the topics that the plan addresses felt most important to people. And in that survey, people responded that economic development, transportation, open space, and recreation, of all the topics, and all the topics are important, but those 3 sort of rose to the top as very important ones. And housing was a very close 4th, and in some of our more recent polls, that one has really, I think, come forward even more strongly. This is a screenshot of the map that's up on the website, so you can see the number of comments there. A lot of them are talking about different transportation issues, intersections, crosswalks, bike routes that don't feel safe or people would like to see or have an idea for improvement. A lot of comments also about land use and development opportunities, people saying, hey, this site would be great for housing or great for a new business, or, can we get somebody in the storefront here along Maste Ave? Also, a lot of comments about what people love about the parks and the open spaces here, places that bring people together. So very great to hear about that as well. So I mentioned, some of the places people felt could be changed or improved in some way. The business centers were ones that really rose to the top there. A lot of the comments, as I said, around, land use, development opportunities, storefronts and filling those in the business centers, bike lanes, things like that. So a lot of, again, all of this is kind of feeding into our process. The couple of quick polls that we've had up, the first was launched in August, had a little over 300 responses. This was getting into a little bit more detail of what people think the town most needs in the next 10 years. And top ones there were more housing choices or better affordability and more local businesses and jobs. The other category there, people were talking about public transportation, which is not directly in the town's control, but certainly something they can advocate for. A lot of support for more trees or open space. And then also some comments about the municipal finances and the budget. So really thinking about where's the money coming to do all of this. The other quick polls, what types of housing? Interesting to see that smaller multifamily buildings got a lot of support there. We're calling that sort of 4 to 20 unit buildings. So kind of mid-size, not necessarily the big ones, although that got a lot of support as well. And then affordable or attainable housing very broadly. And then here asking about the types of businesses people would like to see here. A lot of interest in the type of businesses you would see in the business districts, in storefronts. So restaurants, retail, bookstores, entertainment, arts, culture, things like that. We know that another very important part of the local economy is the things that aren't going on those storefronts, but are the offices, the maker spaces, the industrial type uses, very low impact that are important for the town's tax base. And we have a couple posters that talk about strategies, just recognizing that the land for that's very limited here, but it's also a very important strategy for the budget. These are some responses from the paper surveys that the committee collected. One that I'll just note here, there was a question about how to make Arlington a more inclusive and equitable town. And the answer that got a lot of support from over half the respondents was about housing. So people really make a connection between being able to afford the type of housing that somebody's looking for wherever they are in their life, and the town being as inclusive and equitable and welcoming as it can be. So all of this input and what we hear tonight, and again over the next several weeks, how are we using it? So far, we've already used it to make the revisions to the vision and goals. We were starting with the current plan and updating that based on what you had told us back in April at the first meeting and over the summer in the visioning survey. It's also helped us to identify some of the strategy themes that you see tonight based on what people kept talking about, housing and open spaces and things like that. So it gave us some direction on those. And also it's just, raised some additional questions, things that we still need to explore a little bit. And hopefully some of the feedback we get over the next couple of weeks will help with that. And then going forward from tonight, this input is going to help us to sort of prioritize. I think it's really important to keep in mind. You may look at all of the strategies and think, boy, these are great. We should do every one of them. And hopefully the town will be able to get to them. But we also have to realize we can do anything, but we can't do everything. We have to be aware of just the realities. It's like any household, running a budget. You might want to do a lot of things, but you have to kind of prioritize and pick and choose. So we do want to keep that in mind as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Steve to talk a little bit about the revised vision and goals.
Thank you. All right, here we go. So all of that input, this is what this input starts turning into. Yeah, but before we get right into it, just a quick refresher on a comprehensive plan. You'll often hear us say the word elements. Think of them as chapters. These are the elements, the economic development, all of these boxes. And the ones on the sides, resiliency, sustainability, and the implementation. Those are components that cross all the elements, all of it, all the sections. We want nothing to sit in a silo. We want them all working together because that produces stronger, greater outcomes. So that's how we structure a comprehensive plan. What is the actual plan? We always say it's the high level plan, the highest in the town. It is essentially built and created by the community with all of your inputs, which is why it's so important to get so many in there so that we have a broader representation of community members. But it really does. It informs town budget and decision making. It actually can track the measure over time. The implementation chapter at the end takes once we finalize the strategies and the action items, that is where we've got it. We know who's doing it. We know if it's a near-term or a longer-term project. We know who the partners are. And, on an annual basis, you can look at this and say they've gotten 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 10 already accomplished. And the other ones still, start focusing on those. And this is important, and we're not here yet, but you'll see this as we come into the final stages. The zoning is not a part of a comprehensive plan. They may call out some issues with zoning, but what is in a comprehensive plan is a future land use map. And that future land use map is saying where change could likely occur based on everything the community is telling us, based on everything you've already that Phil just went through. So, higher density here, preservation here, all of those components. So, the plan does inform future zoning changes, and it shows what the community is looking for in terms of zoning changes. Now we're getting into the vision and the goals. I'm going to read this slide, which is a lot. I am not going to read the goals slides, but I'll just highlight a couple items on them. And all of this information is on the first poster back there for anyone who really wants to get in and read it right there. Yeah, but again, what we want to hear, quick pause. Who was at the first public meeting, kickoff meeting? Excellent. So about half of you, and you know what you talked about. We have all of that information. It's all on the website. All of it becomes part of the appendices to this plan. We want to make sure that when you're looking at this and reading it, you're actually seeing what was important to you and the folks at your table, and what you heard during the report back is being reflected in this. So that's why I do like to read this one, in its entirety, but the vision statement that stands atop the goals and then the strategies come under the goals. Arlington will be a welcoming place with attainable housing options, flourishing business districts, and a strong sense of community. Key features will include a variety of attainable housing options for all income levels and stages of life, thriving business districts with a range of job opportunities, inviting safe streets for all users that link neighborhoods, natural systems and open spaces in ecological balance, stewardship and promotion of our historic heritage, cultural and recreational resources that provide shared experiences, new development and redevelopment that enhances sustainability and resilience, a shared interest in civic engagement, and the town's fiscal health. And overall, when we're getting into the goals, that fiscal health is an important component. And so it's preserved and improve the stability, fiscal stability, because we need that in place to really do as much as we can. So again, I'm going to just sort of pause on each of these so people can read it without having to read through them. And again, they're all in the back. But then we go down into the goals and we have a set, usually 3, 2 to 4, call it, for each of these, elements, the chapters, the areas, and you begin to see, what is in the vision statement is starting to become a little bit more clear. And then, as Phil mentioned, underneath these, you're starting to get these specific strategies, site specific, what we're looking for, what needs to be done. But so we've worked through it, and this is the stage we're at right now. And to be honest, we're a little bit ahead of this. Actually, we're more than a little bit ahead of this. But but we want to hear from you on all of these to make sure we are heading in the right direction, hence the strategy themes on the boards. And the economic development, all of these, again, you can get into more detail. So, but just the Arlington's historic and cultural assets, the customer experience, the regulatory process, that is something we heard a lot about in some of our focus groups with developers, business owners, et cetera. And all of these that we're working through, industrial properties, it's on one of the strategy themes that we're looking at. This is where you can really provide all of your input into, and you'll see when Allison comes up next and talks about how we're thinking of, what's most important to you. I'll just say it, and Allison's going to say it again. You get 3 dots per board. It doesn't say it on the board, but 3 dots per board. We're getting a little too crowded. And we should Allison explain more. And of course, the natural resources and open space, all of the components that we've already talked about are all being rolled into these in terms of preservation and enhancement, all of that expansion in some areas when we can. And so it's just really improving overall. And then public facilities and services, sometimes not the most exciting element in a comprehensive plan, but certainly one of the more important. All of the services that the town provides, the community, come at a great cost, and they're all in varying places in terms of the buildings that they're in, what their needs are, what is increasing, what might be maintaining. This is incredibly important for the plan, so don't just jump over this one. And from that's primarily them. They're all, everything I just showed are on the boards, and Allison's going to tell you how we can engage with you now. There's a number of us here, in addition to the committee, will be stationed at them. So if you have additional questions after this quick presentation, we're the people to talk to. So Allison, take it from here.
Thank you. Okay, so we're at an open house tonight. We're all here. We're glad to see you. This is all about getting input on where your plan is going. This will inform as we identify the strategies. So as Bill and Steve, and we'll all keep saying all evening, we have our overall vision, we have our goals, and then we have, the beginnings, we're calling them initial strategy development now of where we will actually go. How do we actually get into doing these things, right? As you go to each of these boards, so in the back, you have vision and goals, and then starting land use, housing, economic development, mobility, transportation, housing, cultural resources. I think it's natural and open resources next, followed by services and facilities. If you couldn't come tonight, for folks on Zoom, or anyone else you run into over the next several weeks, this will all be online as a survey. If you tell us stuff tonight and realize that there's more you want to say, we have the survey available. So when you get to the vision and goals, which is actually in the back, we want to know generally how much do you agree with the revised vision statement? And then generally, how much do you agree with the draft goals? We have sticky notes available if there's more detail you'd like to provide. So that's step one. Do it in whatever order. I'm saying step one because we're talking about it first, but do it in whatever order. This is an open house. Take as much time or as little time as you'd like. As you get to each of the element boards, your chapter boards, you'll get 3 stickers at each. That will help you identify the relative importance of each theme to the town's future. Not everything can be the most important. So please, we understand it is all very important. We don't disagree. But we need to make tough choices between really important things. If you want, you can use all 3 of your dots on one strategy, or you could divide your dots between strategies. For general feedback on each of the tables here, we have these comment cards already. This general feedback. We also have sticky notes where you can write in a bit more detail. We want to hear from you. We're here to have conversations. So please come talk to us, ask questions, talk to each other. And make sure you tell your neighbor and friends. I think the weather influenced us tonight. We know there's a lot. I mean, there's, 6 events just happening in this building tonight. So it's a really busy time of year. Please make sure other folks in the community know. As we said, the website will be available, remains available. All of these posters, all of this information will be on the website with a survey and chances for people to provide input over the next several weeks. If you have not already, way in the back, maybe Alana can wave, but back with Alana, we have a sign-in sheet. If you didn't already sign in, we also have a map. Tell us about where you live in town, if you're comfortable. On all of these boards, the color of your dot doesn't matter. It just means you got that color. So there's no weight to there's just pick a color. We'll hand out dots, 3 dots per board. Don't try to bargain for more. We know it's all really important. We know it's all really important, but that's what we have sticky notes and comment cards for. So
And also, we use the honor system, so.
Also true. So with that, we invite you to start having conversations with us at the board. Oh, yeah.
And the general themes emerged that was being discussed. I'd be interested in what other people have to say, not just go off and do individual things.
So we're not planning an everybody group discussion, but if you can count, there are more of you than there are boards and more of you than there are of us. So we expect that these conversations will be happening as people float around the room. Okay.
I just want,
Oh, sorry, I turned it off.
I just wanted to add that for anyone who does want to sit around and have a conversation, I'll be happy to sit at the end of this table and
Okay.
you designated the table. Just, there we go. And I'm supposed to be on the land use and housing right behind me, so if I turn my head, that's okay, but you can talk. So, and I'll actually quickly bring some materials over so that we can record that conversation, because I think that would be very important. All right.
Yes.
The recording has stopped.
Started here, everyone. Julie. Buddy, you guys hear me okay?
Yes, can you hear me?
Technology is amazing. Yes, I can, Jennifer. Thank you. So these are the poster boards that we have around the room. Thank you so much for working with us. Get these set up for your participation. So what I think we can do is take time to read each of these boards, and then we'll spend a couple minutes discussing each one. And then what I'll do is, everybody's going around right now and they're putting stickers on the boards. But I will be your stickers for the evening. So we can discuss, kind of do a round robin and get people's thoughts and comments, and I'll make note of everything. If you guys have any questions, I think a lot of people left the Zoom, so it's a little bit more of a manageable number. So I think it'll be easy for us to have our own little breakout group. I don't think we need to break into smaller groups. If people feel otherwise, let me know, and certainly we can rearrange. So on land use and housing, I'm trying to get this to a format that is easy for everyone to see. So, one of the big things that came out of the public input regarding land use and housing is really no surprise. Folks are concerned about affordability, and affordability really across all levels. So it's not just, the kind of capital A restricted affordable that we think about. Our housing stock since 2000 has gone up about 1,000 units. But we're really seeing a changing demographic in that. One of the fastest demographics that's growing is our older population. So, as we look at changing demographics, there's going to be changing needs. We have, I make this a little bit smaller. So 58% of Arlington allows for single family homes. Less than 7% is zoned for commercial, industrial, or multifamily use. Only 4% of Arlington is zoned for multifamily housing by right. So 3 units or greater. We're starting to see more development of the multifamily housing right now. The MBTA Communities Overlay District that folks may have heard of, hopefully you've heard of at this point. It is starting to increase our number of multifamily housing units. Our mixed use development has really changed since our 2015 comprehensive plan, master plan at that point, has really put a push towards getting commercial and residential mixed use along the commercial nodes, industrial, not so much our industrial areas, but in our more heavily commercial districts. One of the big challenges that has come up during all of these community engagements, the increasing cost of housing. As many folks may know, we have very limited land to build, certainly very little vacant land and redevelopment. We get a lot of infill development, and we have, just very, very limited opportunities for major redevelopment. Housing costs continue to go up. The cost for development is going up, and certainly in the past few years, inflation has gone up, and it's really made it challenging for a lot of developers. Some of the opportunities that have been identified as things for the town to consider are, our recently adopted multifamily housing overlay, which is also called the everybody knows it colloquially as the MBTA overlay district. So looking at ways that we can increase those opportunities. There has been several town meeting warrant articles that have gone forward in the past to try to allow increased density in single family residential zoning districts. And so what we're seeing is that, well, I mean, it has not passed. So one of the emerging themes that is coming out is maybe doing more with our accessory dwelling unit bylaw, and for the town to look at, ways to make it more feasible for folks to understand what accessory dwelling units are, to understand that they are permitted by right now in a lot of our zoning districts, all of our residential ones, and to see if there are ways to add this, they're calling it gentle density, where it's not necessarily the 2 and 3 family homes going into single family zoning districts, but adding smaller accessory dwelling units, really. And one of the other things that has come up is that there does seem to be some interest and support for multifamily housing types that are built at a higher density than what we've typically seen in Arlington. So these, between 4 and 20 unit buildings, which are starting to kind of sprinkle along Mass Ave and Broadway. There's challenges, in getting these types of developments built. There are, regulatory requirements. The zoning bylaw in Arlington is somewhat more restrictive than some other neighboring communities. So, we do hear feedback, that, Arlington could be a little more flexible with its zoning code, but that's something for everyone to consider. I mean, and to talk about. And one of the things that we hope to talk about this evening. So land use goals. I'll let everybody take a minute to read these, and then we're going to go through, and I want everybody to think of one high importance land use and housing strategy. And feel free, you can either, I think you can shout them out. You can put them in the chat. You can, folks want to just have a discussion about it. Just let me know.
So I'm a little unclear. Do you want us to pick particular items here, or just talk generally about what we value and what we want to see in the town? How did you want to structure it?
Sure. So, the land use goals and the housing goals that we have identified here, these have been developed based on all of the feedback that we've gotten from the community so far. And so, we can start with land use goals, increasing the amount and variety of residential, encouraging development that enhances Arlington's natural resources, attracting development that expands economic. When we look at the land use strategies, these are different ways that the town can consider accomplishing these goals. So, some things that have come up, as a strategy, exploring opportunities along Mass Ave, Broadway, and the Minuteman corridor to encourage greater density. So 3 and 6 story development which, 6-story development is permitted in certain parts of town, right now with density bonuses through our MBTA overlay, along Mass Ave. You know, who feels that that is something that we should really be focusing a lot of our, I mean, all of these, probably, you're gonna find all of these important, and certainly, when I look at these, I think everything is important, but we can't put everything as a high priority. Like, we have to, you know, put together a list of, like, we really have to say super important, high important, medium, low. Carl, did you wanna ask a question?
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me okay? Yes, thank you. Can
So,
you hear me okay?
yes.
I wanted to point out that it's really important when we think about land use to think about commercial and residential, because commercial in Arlington pays the same rate as residential for a given amount of property. And that means since they don't have children in commercial, they end up sort of subsidizing the rest of us, paying our taxes, keeping our rents and taxes in residential low. And so mixed use recently has been eating away or cannibalizing the commercial spaces because there are children in residential, of course. And we see that in like the Brigham and the Legacy. When we allow our commercial spaces to be given over to mixed use and to residential, we end up paying taxes higher. So at the Brigham, they don't even cover their cost of commercial services for the children alone. And I believe the Legacy is the same way. And for housing, individually, some people go to school and some people don't. And so we're paying for people while their children are in school. But in apartment buildings, there's a continual amount of children there that doesn't really disappear. Families move away, new families come in to that unit, and we all end up subsidizing cannibalized commercial that turns into residential. So I think people should really be aware of that and be very careful to put any more commercial spaces out of business by putting residential in them.
Does anybody else have a thought on that? Jennifer?
Yes, I do believe that children are an investment and an asset, not just a cost or a burden to our town. And families that come in bring a lot of energy and vibrancy to our community. It is the future. It is our future. That I also would like to emphasize that depending what kind of business we're talking about, having increased density of people living here supports those businesses. So it's definitely important to have a balance and have those commercial spaces. Mixed use does include commercial space. So I think we do need to keep in mind that having people living here supports the businesses and make sure we have space for both. Increasing density allows for both of that. I'll also mention that in most of the reading and things I've heard, gentle density actually is a lot broader than how you were defining it. That would include 2 and 3 family homes in some of these smaller ones. To restrict it to only ADUs is, I think, unnecessarily restrictive.
Thank you. That's, very good comments. Peter?
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yeah,
Okay,
loud and clear.
I put a question in the chat. What are examples of underutilized spaces for housing? I'm gonna, in the interest of full disclosure, I was at a meeting and I don't remember what the meeting was in the town or who said it, but they declared that an example of underutilized spaces were churches. And I wouldn't agree with that, very strongly disagree with it. So that's why I asked is like, what are the folks on the committee viewing as underutilized spaces, and does that does that include churches? Thank you.
Matt?
Hi, so I live on Everett Street, just off of Mass Ave in East Arlington. And just behind me on Grafton Street, one house off of the convenience store there, they are going to be tearing down a 1-family house and putting up a 4-unit building in roughly the same footprint, maybe a little bit taller. I'm perfectly fine with that. I think it's a great idea. We live, easily accessible to buses and the MBTA and Alewife and so forth. But one thing I do mourn is I've been here 8 years. There used to be a grocery store in East Arlington that sold fresh produce. And it seems like we have only and I don't know if this is part of the master plan, but in town we have the Whole Foods and the Stop and Shop. But neighborhood grocery stores that you could go and buy, enough ingredients for a salad for dinner are not anywhere to be found. And you can go buy, chips and milk and things like that. But I don't know if that's the kind of thing that we have in the options in the master plan. But if you're going to increase the density of housing, you can have a lot more people on Broadway and on Mass Ave that would really like to be able to walk somewhere and buy food for dinner without having to buy, Cheetos, and so forth. So I'm just wondering, where do we put that in?
So, excellent question. When we get to economic development, that could be something where we're talking about the different types of businesses. Under land use, and so these are very interesting comments. Sorry, just give me 1 second. Are you all still seeing the share screen? Yes. Back to that because technology at the high school is amazing. I don't think I am keeping up with it.
Sarah, do you want me to help take notes if you want to person the Zoom stuff?
That would be great if you could do that, Angelique. And again, as much as folks can, type comments into the chat as well, we can have folks follow up with responses. I'm gonna get back to the screen here. So in terms of, our land use strategies, are we finding that are any of these seeming high importance, medium importance, or low importance, or would it be more helpful to go through all of the slides first and then we can decide how we want to utilize the time? Because I'm realizing now, there's 8 different elements here. So this is my personal favorite section, but I don't want to dominate and not give folks an opportunity to speak on the different elements.
Sarah, is this a shareable PDF? Would we be able to scan it on our, look at it on our own and then talk in a group?
Let's see if the plan is to put it online. So the plan, this will go online tonight, and this will be available for folks to participate in that are not at the meeting today. So there will be a way to utilize all of this. Let me see if it's online right now, because that would definitely make everybody's life a lot easier if that is put up there. Arlington Strategies Survey. The survey. Do folks know how to get to the town site?
It would be helpful if you put the link in the chat.
Getting one more person to join the group and getting someone else to help join. Facilitate this a little bit. So the survey is in the chat link there. So I'm going to run through all of these and making an executive decision, and then we can go back and discuss. And you can put your comments into the chat. You can put your comments into the survey as well. So moving on to economic development. So the majority of our employment base is coming from healthcare and social services. Since 2015, obviously, we had a pandemic, and the amount of people that are working from home has drastically increased, up to 48% of residents. Since 2013, we've added 250 new businesses that are primarily in professional and technical services, health and social services, information services. We're seeing that, 93% of residents, of the ones that do commute outside of, do commute to work, they go outside of Arlington for work. And what that tells us is, seemingly obvious, people, can't work and live in the same community. It's not happening in Arlington. Themes from public input, supporting existing businesses and increasing a variety of local businesses in town is, an overwhelming desire, reducing commercial vacancies and increasing the town's capacity for local commerce. Almost a third of respondents to one of our polls felt that, we need to add more local businesses in the next 10 years. And more than 50% of respondents feel that restaurants, small local retailers, entertainment are most needed. Some of the challenges in accomplishing that is that, only 6% of our very limited land use is zoned for commercial and industrial. And to Mr. Wagner's point, as we're encouraging mixed use, that this is the land that we have to work with. And how do we protect that commercial space while still addressing the housing needs that are very critical to our community. So making commercial spaces opportunity. It could be helping to meet the demand for more third spaces, which are defined as places where folks go outside of their home and work, places to meet other community members. The town should take a coordinated effort to support market economic development and tourism, urban investments, to appeal to the competitiveness in our community, in our area. Our goals in economic development: create regulatory and permitting process that clarify requirements and reduce unanticipated costs of small businesses and small developers. Reducing the amount of red tape, essentially, to make sure that we're encouraging our small businesses to come in and feel welcome in our community. Increasing build out potential and the value of commercial spaces. One of the challenges that we hear repeatedly is that we don't have enough of the type of commercial space that is needed. We need bigger commercial spaces for a lot of these businesses that are coming in, or that want to come into Arlington or expand. They're already here. Improving our overall customer experience through streetscape and pedestrian improvements, beautification efforts, signage, wayfinding. Some ways that, the town can look at doing that is creating a more streamlined permitting process. What we want to do is, reduce some of the burden on businesses that are coming in or that need to get building permits, that need to get liquor licenses, if we looking at ways to make it less burdensome for them, a less cumbersome process. Expanding opportunities for redevelopment in our commercial areas by creating flexibility, or taking advantage of hybrid business models, evaluating options to assemble and control key parcels. Enhancing the public realm into 3 specific business districts. We can build capacity and increase resources to advance our economic development initiatives. There are a lot of programs that the town could look into to help generate enough capital in order to improve these business districts. We have a business, we don't have one in Arlington, but a business improvement district would be a certain region where, we can use, funds that are raised either through, it could be through a parking program, it could be through tax, the tax program, but that funding is then, channeled back into these businesses and these areas to try to attract and maintain these districts. Transportation networks. The town is very conveniently located next to the Alewife train station. We have several bus lines. I will be the first to admit that they all need work. They all need to come quicker. They need to come more frequently. They need to be, there is improvements that need to be made. A lot of folks are commuting more than 30 minutes to get to work. And if we don't offer alternative transportation options for folks that are more economical, that are quicker, that are better than driving in a vehicle, we're going to end up with traffic issues. Over half of Arlington's residents that are driving more than 30 minutes. 50% of trips in Arlington originate outside of Arlington. How do we encourage, folks to take public transportation or alternative transportation, to ride bicycles, to walk if able to, improving our multimodal transportation methods is something that we can continue to look at. We have different areas that the town is already working on improvements. Maste and Appleton Street, which is over by the high school. The town has been working on a multi-million-dollar project to update safety features and crosswalks in that area to make it safer for students and pedestrians and bicyclists. We're working on Park Ave improvements, but we need to do more. So next steps for improving our transportation projects for future considerations. How do we increase safety for all of the roadway users? Managing traffic operations to improve safety, balance local and through trips, and address needs of all roadway users, and actively manage the supply of parking to support businesses, neighborhoods, and new developments. The town is looking at different themes for considering adopting a traffic calming toolkit. We are looking at ways to advocate for more frequent bus service. Unfortunately, the MBTA is not within the town's control. So, advocating with our local delegation, making sure that we are at the table when the MBTA is talking about doing, its redevelopment at the Alewife station. Treating parking as a resource to support larger objectives. We're looking at doing, we're hoping if the community supports to explore different parking revenue sources, looking at the overnight parking, allowing on-street parking to reduce the amount of parking that is required on site for new developments. Could be something to consider. Working on our Connect Arlington project, which was adopted in 2021 as a result of the 2015 master plan. There are so many projects in there that need to be updated. On to natural resources and open space. We have over 550 acres of publicly held open space in Arlington. 72% of that is protected land. And 61% of the open space is owned by Arlington or the state's the Recreation Department of Recreation. We have over 10,000 public shade trees and 300 a goal of 300 new trees per year. Arlington has a Community Preservation Act that has supported 35 open space and recreation projects since its adoption in 2016. One of the things that makes Arlington so unique is its beautiful balance of suburban but urban the feel. And the way that we achieve that is our proximity to Boston, our shops, our restaurants, but also because there is a huge push by the community to protect all of this open space and this tree canopy and enhance it. And you know, there's a delicate balance to maintaining all of this maintaining open space and tree canopy while trying to encourage new development, encourage, you know, commercial investment while protecting our green space. Demands from our recreational program, especially for families and adults. There are competing recreational needs for use. Some of the other concerns have been limited funding and staff capacity to support recreational offerings. It's great to have as many programs as we possibly can, but if we don't have the staff to support it, you know, that's a challenge. That's a really big challenge. Some of the opportunities could be reallocating passive recreation space for active use to better align with shifts in program demand, facilitating open space development on private property and through public-private partnerships, continuing to invest in green infrastructure, trees, native plants, and restoring Arlington's natural resources. You know, will increase precipitation, temperatures, and more extreme weather events. You folks may have noticed we have a sustainability and a resilience consideration on each of these posters, which I should have mentioned earlier. Apologies for that, but while that's not its own element, we do see these themes and see that there is a townwide consideration and support for adding sustainability and resiliency considerations to each of these sections. So for the open space goals, using sustainable approaches to improve air quality, ensuring Arlington's neighborhoods and commercial areas and infrastructures are developed and maintained to build resilience and mitigate climate change impacts. Improve open spaces and programming to meet the population's changing needs. And ways that we can look at doing that is using municipal and private development projects to enhance additional open space. Maintaining and expanding natural landscapes by expanding tree canopy in neighborhoods with low coverage, promoting the use of native plantings and sustainable landscaping, preserving existing native vegetation, increasing residents' capacities to implement resilient measures on private property, aligning park and recreational assets with community needs to balance competing use interests. So strategies that will support that will be continue to implement the open space and recreation plan, which was adopted in 2022. And continue to use native plants and use the tree canopy expansion program to reduce the urban heat island and decrease stormwater runoff. to support biodiversity. Historic and cultural resources. We have 63 sites that are listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Arlington's Cultural District is located in Arlington Center and the Capitol Square in East Arlington. And there are 31 historic preservation projects that have been funded through Arlington CPA since 2016. Themes from the public. People want a more defined and vibrant community culture and celebration of local heritage. There have been comments of the town's need for higher visibility and marketing of historic and cultural resources at events. There's some comments that there's never enough money or resources to promote our museums. Many organizations are drawing from the same donor base. Challenges can be public outreach and marketing of historic and cultural offerings is often fragmented. There's insufficient funding and staffing, which hinders historic preservation and cultural initiatives. And there's a heavy reliance on volunteers, which can affect program consistency and sustainability. So opportunities the town can consider, including centralizing a town-wide communication and marketing of events, increasing coordination collaboration between town and existing historic and cultural organizations, exploring further fundraising opportunities. The arts and culture plan that the town has was updated in 2017. Very possible that an update is needed. We can continue to maintain and adaptively reuse our historic structures. Those will help to support the strategies above. Public building services. We have 25 town buildings plus 10 schools, which equals more than 1.5 million square feet of public building space. Our school enrollment has gone up 6% since 2021. And the Arlington High School building project is complete. I'm sorry you all aren't here to sit in this beautiful high school right now with us. The town has an extensive sewer and water pipeline. Our revenues, as you can see, largely come from just a little bit so you can see, largely come from our property tax base. The school department, it generates the biggest expense at nearly 50%, and that shouldn't really come as a surprise. People come to Arlington because of our amazing school system, and operating the schools is expensive, and maintaining that level of service that residents expect, it does come at a price. So becoming, less than 4% of the tax that was generated came from commercial and industrial, which is something to consider. How do we, there are other communities that have different tax rates for commercial and residential use. I'm certainly not going to sit here and argue for one or the other, but if we were, Arlington struggles with its maintaining its commercial businesses, shouldn't say struggles, but our economic development coordinator is constantly in touch with residents, and we have to see what we can do to keep them viable, to keep these businesses afloat, and to keep the diversity and the diversity of businesses, to keep them active in town. Some challenges: the structural deficit between limited property tax revenue increases and increasing costs for essential services. Limited funding and staff capacity to support increasing demands for town services, staff shortages. The combined sewer overflows from neighboring communities is a huge concern. We have a highly engaged community, which is committed to seeing Arlington thrive as one of our biggest opportunities. We will continue to move forward with our energy efficiency renovation projects that are outlined as part of our net zero action plan. And we'll continue to make progress on that plan, which has a goal of reaching net zero, no greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. The town is looking at the goals to coordinate and efficiently deliver town services, to build, operate, and maintain public facilities that are attractive, minimize environmental impact, and help connect Arlington as a community. Maintain and beautify our public parks, trails, play areas, and streetscapes, support Arlington public schools, preserve and improve the town's fiscal stability. One of the strategies the town can consider is exploring and implementing strategies to increase our commercial and industrial share of property tax base, and encourage redevelopment or new growth to increase the tax base. We're going to continue to implement the strategies outlined in our net zero action plan and our capital improvement plan, which include energy efficiency building upgrades, clean energy installation, native plants. So I've done a lot of talking. I would like to hear from some other folks. What do we think are our highest priorities? We can put things into the chat. I would love for folks to speak up if you have questions, thoughts, comments. Has anybody gone to the website to take the poll? Any folks that we haven't heard from yet tonight? Anybody want to speak or put something in the chat? It's a fairly friendly group online here.
Sarah, will you just read off the theme areas one more time to spark folks' memories?
Absolutely. So we have land use and housing. We have economic development. We have natural resources and open space, historic and cultural resources, and public services and town financials. Mr. Wagner, I see you with your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. If anybody else wants to go before me who didn't speak, please let them. Is there anybody who wants to? Okay, I just wanted to say, I think it would be good if we could compare what's changing from the 2015 master plan to now, because that was a very good visionary document that a lot of people in Arlington, paid and volunteer, took time to put together. And honestly, I looked at the draft proposals that you have on the website that you shared in the chat. Thank you for that. And a lot of it uses the word more development, more development. And of course, we have the state of Massachusetts telling us we have to make 222,000 units of housing real quick But honestly, Arlington is the second most dense town in Massachusetts and the 11th or 12th most dense city if we were a city. So we've already done our job. And the reason we like living here is it's actually a little bit more affordable than the communities around us, except for Medford. And we have green space, a little bit, right? We have some great parks and some great tree canopy. So what concerns me, and I hope it concerns the YIMBYs on this call or who are involved, as well as people like me who you might call NIMBYs, is we shouldn't wreck that. We should only do things that make the housing affordability crisis better. Forget about building luxury condos that are high priced or force us to move out. Only let us build a housing that makes us noticeably cheaper to live in. That's what I would say. I hope that we get to see the differences between the old plan and the new plan. Thank you.
Thank you for that. We can certainly put together, we have the information fragmented, which might not be helpful at the moment, but we can certainly assemble some charts all together that show what has been completed since 2015 and where we're at right now. I just want to kind of, so, you know, as we talk about more development, but not the high-rise luxury condo type, is the accessory dwelling unit, you know, doing more to encourage that type of development? Does that seems like we're on the right track with that? Great to hear. Jennifer, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yes, I do. And yes, I will agree. I probably would be considered a YIMBY by many people on here. I fail to see any way we can make housing more available and affordable without building more. That needs to be done for a whole range of income levels. And well, I suppose the very wealthy have their own, they're good. But I moved here about 10 years ago, and it partly was because I could afford a house. It was also because of proximity to my employment in Cambridge and the good schools. 10 years later, I probably could not buy my house. I wouldn't be able to afford it. So we do need to have more housing to make it more available for people of a range of sizes. I also always find it a bit amusing when people are talk so much about Arlington being a town, as I understand the Massachusetts legal distinction for different municipalities. But as someone who grew up in a small farming town of 500 people, if you can't see fields of wheat outside the high school, it's a suburban neighborhood. but getting that balance between economic diversity and increasing housing is absolutely a thorny question. As much as I like some of the little retail and coffee shops, I seriously doubt whether they're bringing in enough tax revenue to really change the balance of what our for town finances and income. So I don't know where we get the additional money coming into the town aside from property taxes and you know what commercial we can. I don't see big areas where we could have more commercial development of like larger employers. And as much as we say we'd like people to have be able to live and work in Arlington, if it's not through like town employees and some of the small retail, I'm not sure what else we really can realistically grow here. I also think it is really important to allow for increases in density in the residential areas, because both that allows us to preserve some of that commercial space, and it provides some of the business of the population there to support some of the corner grocery stores and that Matt spoke of. It also makes some of the multifamily housing a lot more attractive and appealing to young families. I lived in an apartment building when my son was born. We had access to a public park that was far more useful than my current backyard ever has been. But living right on a major thoroughfare is not a very comfortable situation there. So being able to have, and I understand all the compromises and discussion that went into the MBTCA Communities Act discussions in the plan. But like I said, I think there's a real need and a way of balancing some of these needs by allowing 2 and 3 family homes, small apartment buildings in a broader part of the town.
Sarah,
Folks,
sorry, I'm not able to raise my hand. Can
it's
I
okay, Richard, go ahead.
can I make a comment, Rich McElroy? Under land use, I noticed there was a statement saying that we should move passive use of open space to more active use. Now, I would interpret that to mean more playing fields rather than true open space. And I'm not sure if that's really what people intended when they were talking about, that kind of contrast. Can you comment on that statement?
So there's So we're talking about some of the, under the key challenges is the demand for more recreational programming.
Let's see, yeah,
Feeding recreational.
relocating passive recreation space for active use to better, I can't, this print so small, I can't quite read it, align with shifts in program demand. Basically, you're saying, let's put a soccer field in Menominee Rocks Park with that kind of statement. And I doubt very much that really is what people in Arlington will want.
So I think that we're go down to the strategies. I think that would be met with a lot of resistance if there was a soccer field to go into in Economy Rocks Park. But I think aligning park and recreational assets with community needs to balance competing uses. So maybe completing a master fields study to look at, are there other areas that are passive right now that maybe that could accommodate different uses? I think, it's something, after discussions with space parks and recreation groups with the staff recreations department, seems like, there should be, they're advocating for some more studies to determine if it's a possibility. It could be that it doesn't make sense. And the passive uses, the way they are, just need to, folks want them to remain as is. But I can definitely jot down that, that's not how, you don't support, that you don't support a soccer field in Menominee Rocks Park. But I think the idea of doing a master, a comprehensive study of the different parks to see what can be done, could help us understand a little bit better what that would look like. Christina, I know I saw your hand up.
Yeah, I did have it up. Sorry, and I'm I'm a little under the weather, so I apologize. I think in general, when I look across all of these, like the feeling that I have is that so many of the considerations and honestly, a lot of the things that folks have brought up are like really closely linked, right? Like, and I think so much of it boils down to like increasing density and increasing commercial like space and matching commercial space and available commercial space to the types of businesses that we want to see, right? And like so much of that comes through from density, and so much else follows from that, right? Like if you have a more dense neighborhood, you would hope to see more little grocery stores in a dense neighborhood. You would then hope to see more walking and transit, right? Like I think I personally would love to never have to drive. But I have to drive for groceries because there's no sort of accessible way for me to get groceries, right? And so I think so many of these things feel really related. And I don't think that, you know, I think we're in a position where with housing specifically, right? I mean, there, you know, this is not, we don't have to sort of rabbit hole on this too much. There's tons of data that shows that uh, any housing is helpful, and that adding housing has a depressive effect overall on prices, right? Like we are in a place where housing prices across the board have gone up insanely over the past however many years. Like we're never going to claw that back. But what we can do is start to slow the rate of insane increase, and building more housing units, regardless of the type of housing units that they are, does that in aggregate. Like, does it do that in every single case? No. But you know, across the board, and when you look at like the community level, you know, it's intuitive that that would be the case. So that to me feels, I mean, those feel like the sort of twin pillars, right? Of like increasing density overall, and increasing, I mean, look, like we're not going to have like the sort of data argument here, right? I'm responding a little bit to the chat. I think that's for the folks who, you know, are experts in this to be versed on the literature and to figure out. But I think, you know, the point being that it seems we agree that some form of additional housing is helpful and necessary. It seems we also agree that increasing our commercial base is helpful and necessary. Those feel like the most essential things. And then like many of these other considerations, I think follow much more readily once we have a solid foundation on those two. Um, so I don't know, I guess when it comes to prioritization or virtual stickers or whatever, it feels like certainly I would put mine in those buckets. Um,
Thank you. Um, pick on some other people that haven't spoken yet. No right or wrong answers here. I'd love to hear from any of the other folks that haven't spoken yet, without me calling them out. Um, well, I hope you were able to feel like you're participating in this in a productive way. I think that all of the comments that we've gotten in the chat have been really good discussion items for all of us. We will keep track of all of this. We have the survey up online on the website for the comprehensive plan. I hope folks will go over there and add to it. But we'll continue to put more information on the page, so please continue to check back. Things are wrapping up here at the high school, so do any folks have any last thoughts or last bits of information that they'd like to share with the group? Otherwise, I'm going to say thank you so much for joining being with us as we for hybrid community engagement meeting, and they get better from here. Again, thank you for your patience, everyone. Put my contact information in the chat. I didn't really introduce myself. But as far as development available for any questions if anybody has anything. So Thanks a lot, and everybody have a good night.